Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, February 13th, 2018 caucus meeting for the City of Brook Park. Michelle, please call the roll.
Scott.
Here.
Bergia.
Here.
Orcutt.
Here.
Stem.
Here.
Mancini.
Here.
Poindexter.
Here.
Salvatore.
Here.
Everyone, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3 on tonight's agenda is approval of the minutes of the preceding meetings. Item 1 is the regular caucus meeting held on January 23rd, 2018.
Motion
President.
approved.
I have a change that I'd like to see happen. Page 16, paragraph 4. Get to it. It says, I'd like to go a step further to reach out to recognize businesses by possibly flying their flag. I actually said I'd like to reach out to recognizable businesses about possibly planting their flag, basically in the context of seeing if they would like to, possibly move to locations near the exits of the freeway, so that way, we can draw flow of traffic from, the interstates, get people to come off the exit because they see a business that they are familiar with and recognize, which may then lead them further inland to our city. So I'd like to have that.
What is the exact verbiage change you'd like?
I'd like to go a step further to reach out to recognizable businesses about possibly planting their flag in Brook Park.
Okay, so recognizable businesses to planting their flag in the City of Brook Park.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
That's all.
All right, so there's one change. I'll need a motion to accept the change.
Motion so made.
Support.
Motion on the floor, properly supported to accept the change as stated. Seeing no discussion, Michelle, please call the roll.
Bergia.
Yes.
Who made the motion? Sorry.
Mancini.
Speak up.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at Carl. Carl's looking at
I
me.
take that yes back.
Rich, you supported?
Carl,
He's-
Ed supported.
I made the motion, Carl supported.
Carl.
No,
supported.
no, he supported.
Did you beat me? Okay.
Orcutt supported.
Okay.
Okay. Mancini.
Yes.
Orcutt.
Yes.
Bergia.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Salvatore.
Who made that motion? Yes.
Poindexter.
Yes.
Stem.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carried. Change.
Motion for the change is approved.
I got a lot on the plate. I hope this meeting goes well. I hope I got 7 things open.
Michelle has control of your microphone, Jim.
Okay, we need a motion to adopt.
Motion to
Motion.
adopt the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
As amended, sorry.
As amended.
As amended.
Motion on the floor to adopt the minutes as amended. Properly supported discussion. Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Mancini.
Yes.
Bergia.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Orcutt.
Yes.
Stem.
Yes.
Poindexter.
Yes.
Salvatore.
Yes.
Okay, they're adopted as amended.
Meeting minutes have been adopted as amended. Moving on, item 4, discussion. Item number 1 is council office policies and procedures per Council President Vecchio. This was moved by motion from the February 6th caucus prior to the council meeting. Opening the floor for discussion on this.
Chairman,
Mr. Salvatore.
it was my understanding that you were going to bring forward and be more specific on some of the items that you were troubled with, and if you have that, I'd be willing to listen to those.
I do. So, first of all, as far as the policies and procedures, currently, from 1991 policies and procedures is what was adopted by this council, which has not moved forward. One suggestion is that we amend that section to read basically that the policies and procedures of the City of Brook Park in its latest form are what to be followed within the council office. What we need to understand as far as in the council office is the way it is that Michelle or the clerk or any other employee in there is technically an employee of the city. Even though governed by council, they're an employee of the city, so the rules should follow what the city's rules are. It is the job of the administrator to ensure that those rules are being followed and adhered to. You know, it's not shouldn't be viewed or construed as being a dictatorship, but it's just ensuring that the rules are followed. And this breaks down to paid time off. You know, the information when somebody requests time off, whether it be for medical leave, bereavement leave, sick, whatever it may be, should be communicated from the office administrator to HR, to finance, and even to the mayor. The mayor is the overall administrator of the city. Even though the two branches are separate, the council president is the administrator of the council office, but the communication has to be there because the clerk is an employee of the city and on the city payroll. Currently there's nothing laid out that states anything should be followed, and I believe that we need to have at least something adopted and in print for that. Mr. Poindexter.
Thank you, Council President. I agree that there needs to be a uniform policy as far as employees within our office are concerned. Where I do caution with going with the city's policy and procedures, it states in there on page 9, unclassified employees serve at the pleasure of the mayor. I think our employees should serve at the pleasure of council. So I would caution, you know, using the city. Maybe we can adopt a similar type of policy and procedure for council. Maybe have all the same, you know, parliamentary rules for employees, but you know where we direct our own employees.
Mr. Salvatore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to the finance director. Greg, aren't all employees, including the council office personnel, they're all treated equal? They all follow the same guidelines set forth by the policies, with an exception of who they report to, and there's different people within the city, within different departments, report to different people. Like your people work at the pleasure of you, I would assume. And in the law department, those people work at the pleasure of the law director. So that policy it's a broad scope. It covers everybody, but they all follow the proper channels. And the clerks would be no different than anybody else. Am I correct on that?
I would agree.
Okay, so to incorporate a separate set of policies would be putting our clerks or clerk, depending on how many end up in the office, would be under a different scenario based on a council rule, which I don't think we really need to do. I think they're already covered by the laws that are set forth by the state, by the federal laws, and also set forth by the charter of the city. So I think everything that as you're looking for, Mike, we already have. I think the clerks are protected in that way, especially those protected under family medical leave and those kind of issues. But that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Mr. Mancini.
Go ahead, if you're gonna.
And Rick, that's my belief also. To take it a step further, to put it into black and white so that there's not the gray area. That's why I'm saying that I believe that we need to change the verbiage in our council rules to adopt the most current policies and procedures manual to follow for that office. Right now, the ambiguity there of the adoption of 1991 could leave us susceptible to only 1991 rules. That's why I'm saying I think the verbiage is where the change needs to happen. I'm all for, just as you said, keeping the policies and procedures manual of the city for the council office. So therefore, that's what the rules are that are set and followed. And when you look at that, sections 1.1B, 1.1C2A, and C2, 1.2A and B, 1.3A, B, 1.3B, 1 through 13, Section 1.5A, 2, and Section 1.5B1 of the 2010 handbook lay out all of those things through there. And it also goes a little bit further to the fact that the administrators of the department are responsible for those actions that I'm stating. So that's why I'm saying I'm looking to lay it out so that there is no open end. We close the ends of that and hold the responsibility as where it should be. And then I believe that would be in the council administrator.
Thank you, Mr.
Go ahead.
Chairman. Is there anything new that you were going to bring forward tonight? Didn't we already discuss this one and anything else we're going to discuss? Weren't they already discussed? I thought were you going to bring something new forward? Is that what you were concerned about in the office?
Well, this goes with the office policies is because of the fact that there's nothing that's tracking anything that has taken place. And this goes back to part of the discussion from the last meeting is that for record-keeping purposes, we have nothing. I mean, we go back to in this case of the website that was held by the previous council. We have possible issues with records on that site because it was used with some emails from members of council, emails from members back and forth, city information that are all pertaining to that. And there's nothing laid out anywhere that's protecting us for that. And this is all part of the policies and procedures that all need to be written so that we are covered in the case of we have a public records request, and at the time they were running dual information. Well, obviously some of the information was put via personal emails, and the other information was put into the emails that were on the Brook Park City Council.org or whatever website that was. Well, as it stands right now, no one from the previous council has access to that. No one that's currently seated has access to that, nor does anybody within the administration or the council office have access to that to retrieve any information that may be asked for.
Oh, I'll let my other colleagues have their questions, and then we can move on to your next issue.
Mr. Mancini, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, we use the term here a lot, like somebody clearly, specifically, I assume that's where we're going to run it. And, you know, I could ask some of the senior members, I mean, how many incidents arisen within that office that, I mean, one particular we know of that has arisen that, you know, we couldn't, as council as a whole. I mean, I don't know if I want one person just running everything in that office. And again, earlier just this year alone, I was shocked by a decision made because I didn't feel that I was fully engaged in that decision. And I guess my part on this is most of the things we have to do here within that office, without here, is done as council as a whole. And I have to think through all the year. I get the updating part, but through all the years, I don't think it's been that big of a problem. I mean, I could ask two of our senior council members, you know, what their thoughts were, if anything ever arisen where, you know, this is like lightning. We got to attack this. That's kind of, you know, where I'm going right here. I think as a council, we generally could kind of contain a lot of things and do a lot of things pretty much as council as a whole. So that's all I really have to say on that. I don't know, and I know my colleague brought it up, Mr. Poindexter, that, you know, when it all comes down to me, a lot of this, the mayor's the executor. He's runs the city, employees, and we're legislative. So we got to attend to what we have to. Mayor has to attend overall what he has to. So that's where I'm at with this. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Orcutt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, I want to thank you for putting this on the agenda. I think the first meeting that we had it on, I think we were looking for the specifics, and I'm glad that we made the choice to vote and put it on this caucus. And in that time frame that we had between the two meetings, I had some time to think, and I see the policies and procedures we want to talk about how the offices ran.
And it just comes to mind about how this legislative branch did a bad job over the last 2 years. And over the past 2 years, the city suffered from that. So I think it's good that we're actually talking about these things. And one thing came to mind that, well, two things actually. One that I kind of agree with you. There needs to be an SOP. I think it is there probably. I went through the policy handbook and I saw what we were talking about, and I do think that stuff's there. But the second thing I thought of was, that's pretty troublesome for this community, is that council investigation. I don't think it should be sitting in committee anymore. I think that needs to come out. We need to talk about it. It needs to be swift. We need to find out what went wrong in that office, who was creating legislation, and I don't want to get into those details because I want to stay on this line item that we're on here. But in that time frame that I had from to this meeting, from the last time we talked about this, those are the things that I thought of. So I think we need to pull that investigation out, put it on the floor, find out what happened in there, so that never happens again. We don't set a bad precedence, a negative precedence in this community that other things like that can happen again. So that's what I took from this line item when I was preparing for this meeting, and I just wanted to put that out, that I think that council investigation needs to get out, and we need to figure out what happened there and then move forward. Get the city going again. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orcutt. Anyone else? Mr. Scott?
Did you say that our policy and procedures that we have right now are for the council since November of 1991? That's their latest update on that?
Yeah, if you read in the council rules, yeah, that's the ones that the council has enacted. And so it has not been forwarded or updated since then.
I would have to say from 1991 to now, there's got to be a lot of gray areas in there. I think we ought to maybe take a look at, like I said, taking a look at the 1991, how to improve that. There are questions that have to be asked and answered. I think of course, the policy, the manual's got to be updated, but it's not going to be an overnight operation. It's going to take time to do that. So I basically think we should take a line by line on this November 1991 item and just try and make it and see where the improvements should be made. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's just, I think the thing is almost 30 years old.
Just to expand on that, and that's where I'm going with it. That's what we need to do, and I think it's our responsibility for the residents and future members of council that we do our due diligence in that and line item it and update it. Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do believe that's already been done. We had some amendments made from the city offices, from the administrative side, that there was a new policy that was drafted in 2010.
Okay.
And it's my understanding that policy was in our office. Is that not correct?
Actually, we have the 2010 that is our SOP that we're operating from. 2015, there was updates in the works that whether they were presented or not, I don't know. I've heard two sides that they weren't presented, but I've also heard that they were presented and supposed to be passed out. So which one, I don't have a clear answer on. And trying to trace back that trail is part of our paperwork circle. So that's kind of
I
where
don't
we're
think
at
it would
there.
be hard to figure out. I mean, Mr. Single, do you know if there's a 2015 policy that's in place?
Through the chair to Councilman Salter, my recollection is they were working on one, whether it was finalized or not, I don't recall, or I don't know. But we can ask tomorrow, and we'll ask HR tomorrow if there's an updated employee handbook or policies and procedures.
Is there one
handbook
for
that's in place.
2010?
I don't know that either. I'm trying to think.
Through the chair to the mayor, I know Mayor, you probably haven't had a chance to research some of that stuff yet, but if you have had the opportunity, do you know if the handbook is from 2010?
No, Rick, I don't.
Okay,
I'll
maybe
find out and call you.
Okay, we can work on that tomorrow.
Yes, sir. I'll give you a call tomorrow and let you know.
If it's in place already, there's no need for us to reinvent the wheel, but just get involved with what's already written. And if we have to make some changes to that, we can work together and make it happen.
I would agree on Mr. Scott.
No, I was just, like I said, I was just questioning, we saw Rule 27 of Scott Council on November 26, 1991. That's the last personal policies and procedures. I don't know if it was updated or not. That's, you know, if it was updated, that shouldn't have been in there like that. But like I said, if nobody knows for sure, we better take that step and find out what's going on.
And that Rule 27 is definitely something that needs to be updated, because as it reads, it says, "The council president shall follow the personnel policies and procedures adopted by council on November 26th, 1991. All rules and regulations can be amendable or nullified by a majority of council." So I would believe that is following the verbiage being 1991. We adopted 1991, and here we are, 2018. Madam Law Director.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. My understanding is the 2010 policy manual is in effect. The 2015 was never quite finished. There are a couple areas that need to be completed. And as best I know, I did have a conversation with Mr. Dave Morris, who is the Human Resources Commissioner in 1991, and I don't believe at this point the city has a copy of the 1991 manual, unless unless council has it. But on the administrative side, I don't believe we have that. I had a occasion during a Civil Service Commission meeting to ask him about that, and he thought that as far as he knew, that it no longer existed. And my conversations with Ms. Sinatra, she confirmed that she did not have a copy. So the 2015 has some differences from the 2010, but my understanding is it was never finalized.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Salvatore?
I think those rules from 1991 must have been pretty good. We haven't had a problem until now.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, you are correct. We haven't had a problem until now. So now, unfortunately, it's surfaced, and we have some situations that need to be rectified. So again, like you say, Rule 27 of our council rules is where we need to amend and update, and at least get us up to the 2010 handbook, and maybe, whatever the verbiage may be, that it follows, that it's following the current policies and procedures manual of the city of Brook Park is probably what I would see best. And if anybody wants exact verbiage, I would probably reach out to the law director. Mr. Salvatore?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Do you have any other topics you want to talk about on that issue? Otherwise, I was going to make a motion.
No.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that this was discussed. We'll wait for the mayor to research the policies, work with the law director, and once we know for sure what policies we're talking about, we can research them together and then adopt them into our rules accordingly.
Support.
Motion pending mayoral research, properly supported. Discussions on the motion? Seeing none. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes?
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Motion carries. Moving on to item number 2, 2018 caucus and council meeting schedule. 2 months were verbally approved at the January 2nd, 2018 organizational meeting. This is per Council President Vecchio.
Chairman?
Mr. Salvatore?
Thanks for bringing this up. I appreciate it, because we really didn't finish it. There was an area that usually we usually have some good debates over, but I think the schedule is good, the way it's set up, minus is the absence of a summer session. And I know the charter allows for us to have 2 months off in the summer, but I would I would feel more comfortable if we've used the formula that we've been following for the last several years and still schedule meetings during summer sessions so that the administration will know they've got 2 weeks out of the month of July, 2 weeks out of the month of August, that if something's going on, that we can do it during that time. And the residents will know that we're not disappearing for 2 months. We still have scheduled meetings. We'll still have 2 a month. And then, of course, we're always at the call of the mayor, the president of council, or 3 members of council in the event of an emergency. So other than making amendments to a summer session to the schedule, I don't see any other changes that need to be made at this time.
Mr. Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the month of August, I'm not sure if it's a typo or if I'm not reading it correctly, but I noticed that we have caucus and council on August 7th and 14th a caucus, and then we have on the 21st caucus prior, and then the 20th council, and then 28th a caucus. Are we going to have a meeting on a Monday?
That was a typo.
Is it a typo? Oh, sorry. Okay.
You were just reading it upside down.
That's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bergio. Anyone else? Mr. Poindexter.
Yeah, I agree with my colleague, Mr. Salvatore. That was the only issue I saw with it was the summer session. Other than that, I'm okay with the schedule.
Mr. Scott.
Yeah, we'll set the summer schedule that way, summer recess, that way council can, if they do have, vacation plans, at least they can do that. As per the rest of it, we'll leave it, I personally think we should leave it alone for right now. There's time, and I'll be honest with you, I think March is gonna have to be as it is, because we're gonna be getting budget, we're gonna be meeting, there's gonna be a lot of meetings in March, so I really think we leave things as be right now with the rest of the schedule. Work on summer recess so that council members with families, I'm sure Mr. Poindexter would like to schedule a vacation. So if we get that down, at least there's a little heads up where, families can plan a vacation. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Poindexter.
Yeah, that's softball season, so we're pretty busy that time of year. So, that's all.
And I'd like to weigh in myself. My personal opinion is that I don't know that we have a necessity of a weekly meeting schedule in its current state, where we're running we're running a council caucus meeting followed by a caucus meeting the next week, followed by a council and caucus meeting, followed by a caucus meeting. My question is to everybody, in your amount of time that we've got between, how are you expected to do your due diligence with what is on the agenda that you're receiving on a Friday? So for instance, and I'll use a scenario, is you receive your packets on Friday afternoon, and you have something that is safety related that you must speak to the police chief on. Police chief isn't in on Saturday and Sunday. You work on Monday. Your meeting's on Tuesday. How are you getting your due diligence done?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Salvatore.
that's why most legislation has 3 readings. That's one of the reasons why. So if you didn't have a chance to do your due diligence, and the council was anticipating suspending the rules and passing it, that's when the council would ask its colleagues, could you give me a little time? 'Cause I didn't have time to do my research, and could we just give it first reading and deal with it next week or the week after? I mean, there's mechanisms in place that help the city run so smoothly, and in particular, city council, and that's one of them. Most items are getting 3 readings today. Now, before, most stuff was passing under suspension of the rules, and everybody had the time, everybody was communicating well, everybody could get the answers that they needed and could pass it that same night. There's been many times when things have been set up to the dais here from a purse that night that nobody even had it in front of them, and was dealt with. That was at Rule 12 that needs to be looked at. But And I don't quite understand what you're getting at about the caucus. Is it the caucus meeting prior to the council meeting that you're concerned with?
No, I'm just looking at the schedule with the, caucuses should be our work sessions, as we all know. So we have confirmed start times of 7 and 7:30 for our caucus meeting, followed by our council meeting. For the public themselves, I'm sure that they would appreciate the fact if we stayed on task and on schedule. In some of these cases, we may not be able to because there's multiple items on there. But, we have the separate caucus meetings as those work sessions, which are open-ended. So the start time is there with an open end. The caucus meetings that we're having before the council meeting are therefore need to be condensed versions to stay on task and on time, so as not to impede the residents or what our meeting schedule is my opinion on that.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
I was the supporter of putting that caucuses prior to the council meeting, and one of the reasons why we did it and we finally all agreed that it was a good thing to do is because it allowed the legislation to flow smoothly. It allowed us to talk about things on that council agenda. For example, if the mayor had a piece of legislation that was on third reading and ready for passage, we could discuss it at the caucus meeting. He may want to pull it. Maybe he looked at something and say, you know what, this needs a little more work. That's what the work session is for, is to work out any things that may come up primarily about the agenda, the official business meeting, which is the council meeting. So the 30-minute caucus meeting prior to was ample enough time, unless you're going to have someone's going to come forward and make a presentation that may take an hour. Obviously, that's not going to work. But I like the caucus prior to the council because it does allow legislation to move freely through the system, and it does allow us to have the opportunity to discuss the council meeting items prior to the council meeting so that everybody has a clear understanding. And you spoke earlier about due diligence. That meeting is exactly that. It's for that purpose. If you have a question or have a problem, you're not doing it in the back room, you're doing it in front of the public, and you let everybody knows that why we're going to do something on the agenda, and we're doing it at another open meeting, open to the public. I like the idea of having it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Mancini?
Thank you for recognizing me, Mr. Chairman. Maybe again, I could look at this a little twofold, but I kind of got to look at it with a new administration coming in and with a new council. One of our colleagues, I believe it was Mr. Scott, mentioned the budget's coming. So I imagine some of these meetings will be pretty prolonged. I would have to think some of these, as we move on through the year, hopefully the administration will bring in us things that they see that they want enacted, ordinances, resolutions. We'll be bringing our own. I imagine this first year we'll have a pretty lot on our plate. Again, maybe some of these meetings will last 10 minutes, maybe less. But as of now, I'm probably pretty fine with the schedule. I go with my colleague, Mr. Salvatore. I know these caucuses, again, I got 7 things on today, are a work session. I kind of like them. I kind of think, seeing on my 4 years here, I think we get a lot done in them caucuses, and well, that's how I feel. But I appreciate everybody listening. Thank you. I just think we're going to have a busy, at least the first half of the year, a busy little schedule, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. Mr. Poindexter?
Thank you, Council President. Looking towards the end of the year schedule, also, we have meetings scheduled for the week of Thanksgiving and also the week of Christmas. I'd like the council to consider maybe, not having those on the schedule, if people travel for the holidays or have family in town. And, the residents, they have family in town, a lot going on during those times. I'd like to consider maybe leaving those dates open also. Thanks.
So to sum that up, there'll be open dates at the holidays, as you're asking. Mr. Scott?
Yeah, of course, Brian, I understand that. Basically what I'm saying, my idea is let's go through the 3 months, go to March. Full council meetings on March. And then we can look at the rest of the schedule after that. You know, we'll see. We should be able to, by the end of March, be able to see how the city flows. Keep the schedule as is, make the changes, we'll do our summer recess. And then we got November, December. I mean, that could be, that's a 10-minute discussion. That could be taken care of anytime. I think really we look at it, maybe come back to this at the end of March to look at the rest of the schedule. I personally think that, like I said, I know what we went through with the budget, and it does take up a lot of time. It will take up all these meetings, I guarantee you that. So I think we should look at summer recess, set summer recess, get that out of the way, keep the agenda as it is. After March, then we take a look at it, and if we have to make changes, then we make changes. But, that's my personal opinion. Leave us alone until after March. We are going to have a lot of meetings in March, and we're going to use them all. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could weigh in on one thing as a suggestion, and I happen to agree with Mr. Salvatore as sitting, listening to him and thinking about this, but maybe one suggestion that we do change is that we change the way our meetings read. So the council meetings following a caucus meeting, if we could maybe change it, instead of the start time being 7:30, that the council meeting immediately following the caucus prior. So as if the caucus meeting is 5 or 10 minutes, we don't have to sit for 20 minutes. We can get right into what we need to do. Instead of wasting the amount of time sitting, we can get going and move forward.
If I can, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to hit on two things. I concur with my colleague, Mr. Scott. I'm always a 6-month guy. I think after the budget, I think kind of we'll know where we stand. I'm fine with 6 months. If 3 months is what council wants to do, I'm fine. We could always make that arrangement. On the 7:30, if I stand corrected, doesn't that have to be a public notice, though?
Yep.
If we say, hey, we're going to go right after. What if the meeting lasts till 7:25, or what if the meeting lasts 7:05? I believe it's got to be public record. Caucus 7, council 7:30. That's all I have.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Salvatore?
your point's well taken, but in the event that would be a problem, Councilman Mancini is correct. We do have to have an established time for a council meeting. It can't be immediately following unless it was a special meeting. But what we would do if, in the event that should take place, that it would run over 30 minutes, and we know it's going to be another hour, we can always recess the caucus, go into the council meeting, and then go back into the caucus afterwards and finish it, depending on what it was. If it was a presentation or whatever it was, we can do that. I mean, we have a lot of latitude when you have the council that works together, understands what we're trying to accomplish, and the rules are there to provide for us with all the tools that we need to take care of the city business. So I think we're okay the way we are. I think tonight we should pass the schedule the way it's presented, and with the exception of any changes that council agrees for summer session. Council always has the right to cancel a meeting if there's nothing on it. If we get through into April, May, and June, and if we have an agenda that's blank, all we do is we cancel that meeting. There's nothing on it. So there's things that we can do along the line. Making modifications are always available to discuss and make changes, but I do think we need to put the schedule to rest and then approve it as it is, minus any changes that the majority member of councils want to make. I would put forward one suggestion. I'll suggest that in the month of August that we meet on the 7th and the 21st, and then cancel the other two meetings. I'd put that in the form of a motion.
I'll support that.
Question?
Yes.
Can you have two council meetings back to back like that?
Right.
The 7th and the 21st.
It'd be two council meetings back to back.
Caucus and,
Right,
But
'cause
we have a caucus prior to on both
there's a
of them.
typographical error there. When you're looking at it, it says on the 21st caucus prior to council. The council's on the 20th. So if you look at it,
The caucus prior to on the 7th.
Council should be on the 21st.
Caucus prior to on the 21st, and then a council on the 21st. There'll be no work session in between there.
Well, we could have a caucus prior to the council on both of those days.
Right, you're just wiping out the 28th and the 4th,
14th and the
So we
28th.
meet on the 7th, a caucus, and a council immediately following, or 7 to 7:30. And on the 21st, we do the same thing. Have a caucus at 7 and a council at 7:30.
So there'll be no meeting on the 14th or the 28th, right?
right.
Correct.
Okay. Sorry, Mike, I took over.
So in reality, there really isn't a summer session because we're actually meeting, having 2 official council meetings, which the charter calls for. So we're really not going into what you would call a summer session in the month of August, because we will be following the charter.
Anyone else? Mr. Orcutt?
Mr. Chairman, is there a motion on the floor right now?
There is.
That's for August, correct?
Yeah, it was just for one, just for summer session, I believe.
That was just for, well, I made a suggestion for the month of August. If we want to make that motion separate, and then we could talk about July.
Okay.
All right, so motion on the floor to adopt the month of August, as Mr. Salvatore stated, which would be caucus prior to council meeting on the 7th and caucus prior to council on the 21st.
Support?
I supported it already, right?
Oh, boy.
Yeah,
Mr. Scott.
Motion on the floor, properly supported. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore?
yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Poindexter?
Yes.
Stem?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Bergia?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Have that carried?
That motion carries. Now we're move on to discussing July. Mr. Salvatore.
If no one has any suggestions, I think we could go with caucus in the council on the 10th and the caucus in the council on the 24th.
Now, 17th.
Or
Mr.
would it be
Orcutt?
The 17th.
I have a suggestion.
Oh, good.
We're on July, right?
Yeah.
July 3rd, holiday season. Knock those meetings out, the caucus and council. July 10th, we have a caucus. Can we possibly add a council meeting to that?
Yeah. That's what he said.
Oh, we did? I'm sorry. And then you were talking about the 17th as well?
Oh, we go down to the 24th. We skip this. We're doing the 10th, skip the 17th, and do the 24th.
Okay.
Because we're, well,
So on the 10th, we would be adding a council meeting after the caucus. So as it would be, is the 10th and the 21st would be caucus, followed by council on both of those dates, correct?
Mr. Chairman,
17th.
we really wouldn't, we could probably forego the 24th council meeting and just have a caucus, because we do have a council meeting scheduled for August 7th. So if you wanted to, we could just meet on the 10th of July, caucus, council, and on the 24th caucus if needed. In other words, if there's, that would be a situation where if there was nothing to discuss, the meeting would be canceled, and our next official meeting would be August 7th.
All right, well, let me ask this, and we'll have to ask this of the mayor, what the plan is for home days. Normally, it's the weekend after the 4th of July.
And it will remain such.
All right, so the week prior to, which is the holiday, and then that coming weekend, which is therefore home days. I don't know where, what we're gonna really have, work-wise for that session. I mean, obviously, there could be stuff in most likely probably minimal. Mr. Scott?
If I'm not mistaken, I think I talked to Rec Director Elliott. I'm pretty sure he said home day is going to be on the 13th, 14th, and the 15th. Correct?
Yes.
So that's not the weekend following 4th. Okay. So it's not on the 6th, 7th, and 8th. It's on the 13th, 14th, and 15th. Okay.
Okay, so with that, historically speaking, elected members of the city usually are preparing for a lot of stuff, parade, things like that. My question is it a wise choice to have meetings that week when we know that there's a lot of stuff in preparation of? I mean, obviously, I think I think our forefathers looked at some of those items, family-wise, and this happens to be one of those large items of the family nature, and this is another item that we're all involved with. So just discussion points to think about on where we want to look at on this. Mr. Poindexter?
Thank you, Council President. You know, I'm okay with having a meeting that week. You know, we all got to juggle our schedules, and we kind of signed up to sacrifice some things for the city. So I'm okay with having a council meeting that night. And also, I'd like to say I'm okay with having a council meeting on the 24th also, because we have that 5th Tuesday of August, so it would be 2 weeks in between council meetings. So I think adding that council meeting there would be okay too.
We're on July, sir.
That's what I meant, July 24th. The 5th Tuesday is the 31st.
He's saying add it to the
Yes.
24th because you have 5 Tuesdays in July.
Correct.
And we'll go a whole 2 weeks until the 7th of August.
Exactly.
Good point.
Anyone else? Need an action.
What is the,
Go ahead, Mr. Scott.
what's the motion?
I'll
What
make-
action
That's why I
on
said
what?
we need an action.
I'll
I
make
mean,
the
we're
motion.
talking what, caucus and council on the 10th, caucus and council on the 17th, and
No,
No,
Council?
caucus and council on the 24th.
4th.
we're forgetting about the 17th, we're deleting the 17th?
Wipe it out.
Yes. So there will not be anything on the 3rd, nothing on the 17th. We will have a caucus meeting and a council meeting immediately following, or at 7:30 on the 10th, and the same on July 24th. Caucus followed by council.
Okay, caucus and council, okay.
Mr. Mancini?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll make that motion for July caucus council on the 10th and caucus council on the 24th.
I'll support.
Motion on the floor, properly supported for the two meetings set up for July 10th, July 24th. Discussion? Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes,
Motion carried.
July calendar has been set, motion is carried. Any further discussion on this?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Salvatore?
motion to approve the 2018 caucus council meeting
Support.
schedule.
Support.
Motion on the floor to approve the 2018 caucus and council meeting schedule as discussed, properly supported. Discussion? Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott,
yes,
Orcutt,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Motion's been approved to adopt the 2018 caucus and council meeting schedule as amended.
Chairman,
Mr. Salvatore?
so I'd like to make a motion to take the next item of the executive session and move it to the bottom of the meeting prior to adjournment.
I'll support that.
Motion on the floor to move the executive session to the end of the meeting, properly supported. Discussion? Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott.
yes.
Motion's approved to move the executive session to the end of the meeting schedule. Moving on to item number 4, Legislative Committee, Chairman Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 7 items on today. The first will be Resolution Number 28, 2017, designating the month of October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the city of Brook Park and declaring an emergency. It was introduced by Councilman Troyer, Mancini, Powers, and Astorino. Just a little of the whereas, this was put before council 11/14/17. It was last 12/12/17. As everybody knows, breast cancer is the most common cause of cancer in women in the United States and the second leading cause of death. So on this one, the intent, well, council will discuss it at a council meeting, and we want to know what we want to do with it right now. So I'm going to open the floor on this.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the sponsor of the original breast cancer awareness resolution, and then as we previously discussed, I would recommend that this go back into committee and we bring out at the proper time in November of this year, and bring out the one that that we are going to support and pass accordingly. I mean, this particular one has got the city of, got the city along with Southwest General Health Center, and there's no one at Southwest General that was even aware of this. They're not interested in talking about breast cancer awareness in the month of June, July, or August. They're interested in sticking to the proper protocol, which is the month of October. And we've had this discussion before, and I haven't changed my position on this. I really believe that this stays in committee. We bring it back out at the proper time. We get the city involved like we did the last several years, and we do everything in our power to make everybody totally aware of the importance of getting their proper examinations for that month. That's when the hospitals are in gear. They're in high speed, ready for this, not in June and July. There's other issues that come forth, and later in your committee, there's another one on another situation of another awareness that we're going to bring forward. But to talk about something that early prior to, I don't think it's appropriate, and we do not have the backing of Southwest in this particular dialogue. So, as a councilman here in Brook Park, as a strong supporter, I have many friends and family members that have been in the situation, and it's a horrible situation for anyone to be in. It's not to be taken lightly. It's not to be played with. This is serious business. This is one of the few resolutions that we can really get behind and maybe save a life or two. And I don't believe it needs to be discussed in June and July. I think we want to stay in the proper frame of mind, the movement that the hospitals are asking us to do. And I think Brook Park has really done an outstanding job in making people aware over these last couple of years. We've been very proactive in it. We did the bras across the bridge, and now that bridge has been renamed for veterans. We light up the gazebo. Southwest comes in, they participate and they work with us, and all of council. I want all of council on this resolution. Everybody's name. I want the whole town to be on this resolution, if that was possible. So I want the mayor to get involved, and I think he will. I think we all will, and I just think I'd like to make a motion unless anyone else has anything to add to that. I'd just like to put this back in committee until the proper time. Thank you.
Well, I will. I'll let everybody go first. Mr. Councilman Poindexter, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I agree with my colleague that I think it should go back into committee. I would, however, ask my colleagues to, if we could consider bringing it out in enough time where we can have the full 3 readings, so that way we bring the most awareness possible to this legislation. I think when we discuss it on the floor and when it's open for a longer period of time, it will bring more awareness. And so, that's the only consideration I'd like to have added to it.
Well, absolutely. And I believe Councilman Salvatore did say, kind of looking at it, bring it out in July. Is that what you'd said? I mean, start looking at it in July, somewhere at that point?
No, I said in the month of October is when breast cancer awareness
That I
is.
know, but
So we might consider talking about it in the end of September. But it's the month of October. It's the whole month. We want everybody to get involved in the whole month.
And I do concur with everybody on council being on board, and I'm sure automatically they will, as well as the administration. And let's be honest, it's touched everybody. You know, everybody here, everybody listening, everybody in Brook Park somehow has been touched by this disease. So will I take that as a motion that you'd like to put that back in committee, Councilman Salvatore?
Yes, unless anyone else has anything to add, I don't want
Councilman Bergio, go
Yeah, I
ahead.
just wanted to add and also agree with my colleagues. It's always been October, and that's where all the emphasis on, not only nationally, but internationally, and where everyone's looking at that. So that everybody's kind of together on that month of October. I just wouldn't want to see anything taken away from that month. And I think this is something we can all agree on, and I agree with that too. So basically, I'm in favor of supporting that motion.
Okay, I appreciate it. I will second that. Okay, Councilman Orcutt.
I just wanted to say that I think I would support that too. And through the chair to Mr. Salvatore, I think we should blow this up. We should put ourselves on the map for this. It's personally touched my family, and it is something that we should really make everybody aware of. And I'll be a part of it. Whatever help that you need on that, I'm here for you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
to, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Chair.
The other Mr. Chairman, sir.
Councilman Salvatore, go ahead. You got my approval.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did say Mr. Chairman, I was just looking over there. I was watching it out of the back of my head over here. Thank you, Councilman, I appreciate that, and that's the whole idea, is I think we've done a really great job these last couple of years, but we can always do better, and with that attitude, that's exactly what we want. We want it, everything we do good, we want to do it better, and we want to get it to a status called great, and that's exactly what I wanted to hear, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's where I'm headed. Thank
Council
you.
President, Mayor, anything on this? Council President Vecchio.
Yes,
I'll let you go.
Thanks. Obviously, you know, I don't know of many people that breast cancer has not touched them in some way, whether it be a close friend or obviously family member. I know myself, my family's been touched pretty hard by it, and I'm a huge advocate for breast cancer awareness. And you know, throughout the last decade or so, we've seen a lot of people doing a lot of good things. And, you know, I have to agree with each and every one of you that we now need to set a trend and maybe lead to a point that every other city will want to follow and be like Brook Park. That's it.
Mayor?
Obviously, the administration supports Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but every month of the year, we should be aware. So, absolutely.
Everybody very good. So I believe we got a motion from Councilman Salvatore. I'll give it a second. Clerk, if you want to call the roll.
Is that seconded by Councilman Mancini?
Councilman Mancini,
Back committee.
place back in committee.
It'll be longer than 60 days. We'll bring it out, how about,
We can bring it back out and put it back in.
sometime in August? On one of the days that we don't have a meeting.
Pardon me? He's giving it a date, so we're good to go. Okay, the motion is to bring this legislation back out on the August 7th caucus prior to meeting. Salvatore?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Poindexter?
Yes.
Stem?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, everybody. Resolution number 28, 2017 has been placed back in committee for 90 days. The second one is resolution number 29, 2017, recognizing Project Evergreens, Green Care, and Snow Care for Troops. Initiative is a preferred provider for families of deployed military personnel and post-9/11 disabled veterans with a service-connected disability in the city of Brook Park and declaring an emergency. This was introduced by Mayor Coyne. I think it's a good one. Our deployed military members and families and those with post-9/11 service service-connected disabilities struggle to care for their lawns and the removal of snow and ice. So far, this is a nonprofit also. There's been 11,000 who've registered for it, 6,000 volunteers. So this was first brought out 11/14/17, put back 12/12/17. And Councilman Scott, as I look around and see council.
This would be going for second reading, correct?
Yes. Yes,
We've already had a first reading.
right.
Okay.
It's never had a first reading.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it did, on
Original first reading
12/5/17.
was
Councilman Orcutt?
December 5th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did some research. I was here at the meeting in the audience when this was introduced, and I did some research back then on that. On this is a great project right here, and it's something that kind of touches the Orcutt family a little bit. What these guys do is taking care of the families. When somebody's overseas, these people come in to help out. And I'll never forget a story that my neighbor had told me, a personal story to me that happened back in 2005. They were across the street, and they witnessed my oldest on a big wheel playing around, and there was my wife cutting the grass pregnant. And where was I? 6,500 miles away, fighting in Iraq. And I just think this is something that's going to be terrific. I know Council President Vecchio, I know your name was brought up on this. I'm sure you have some things to say about this. But once everybody's done, I'd like to make a motion to place this on the next council meeting
Support.
for its second reading.
Okay, we have that, it's still under discussion. Councilman Vecchio. Council President Vecchio, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. So originally this came to fruition during our campaign season. A resident brought this forward to myself, and I in turn forwarded this on to Mayor Coyne, knowing that this is a great idea that affects a lot of people, not just locally but across the country. You know, our military personnel that are deployed really have a tough time leaving their family members behind, as Councilman Orcutt has already stated with his wife out mowing the grass pregnant. This initiative takes care of lawn care and snow and ice removal by a lot of volunteers. The local organization of this is out of the city of Mentor. So they are looking for additional volunteers, and obviously service members that and post 9/11 disabled veterans that have a service-connected disability to help out. So the help is there for our veterans, and I'm a huge advocate for this. And I myself am fully in support of. And I hope that all of council and the administration is. I mean, I believe that these should be, truthfully, the preferred provider for our veterans, because it is a free service that they have in some instances laid their lives down for us. So this is the least that we can do for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Councilman Scott. Let me go to Councilman Scott real fast, and then we'll shoot back to you, Councilman Salvatore. I also have something to say. Councilman Scott, please.
Okay, through the chair to the mayor. You do have, the mayor, you have a copy of this in your administration?
Yes, the administration supports it fully.
Is there a way that the administration could get this out to the residents? As some sort of notice to get them out to the, residents that this program is available?
I would like to do a joint newsletter with council, and we're going to talk about that during the budget, and we could do it at that time, absolutely.
Okay, like I said, we definitely got to get this, and I got another program that I think your office administrator has. Maybe we'll bring that out real quick too, but yeah, we got to get this out to the people. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Scott. Councilman Salvatore, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this would be, in response to Councilman Scott, I think anybody's going to put out a newsletter between now and the next 30 days or 40 days, we should include this. We should be able to get this passed Mr. Chairman, if I may, I would like to ask the clerk to contact Mayor Coyne and see if he will allow co-sponsors, and if he would, I'd like to poll council now through the chair and see how many people would like their name on it, and so that she can intelligently discuss this with the mayor and to allow our names to be a part of this prior to passage of next week. Thank you.
Any co-sponsors, if you want to put your hands up, feel free, go ahead, thank you.
That's everybody.
Councils, everybody. I myself, I'd like to say on this that, you know, as well as our first piece, you know, these are heartfelt. These are things that as councils we should be doing. I know Councilman Salvatore a lot of times brings up very good little resolutions to honor people, honor things. These are the heavy hitters. These are the ones that pull at our purse strings, because these people, when you're talking about somebody with breast cancer, our military, I mean, these people have given a lot, and to go through with some of them. Councilman Orcutt told me a sentence about a month ago about his time in service. It was a sentence, and we talked about it about a week ago, and about when he went there and when he came back, and just changed my whole perspective on a lot of things, how I look at things. And I'm really glad that council's able to work together on things like these, and very important. And I'm glad you guys are working with me on these, and these were some great things brought forward. I really mean it, so. All right, so everybody's gonna be a co-sponsor. Mr. Orcutt, go ahead.
Yeah, just for the record too, I just wanted to mention, I think it was great that you pulled this out, Mr. Chairman. This is important, and we don't really, I know we talked about, you know, people that are overseas and they're on their deployments, but this is such a great cause for those that come home, the disabled. And that's a big thing. That's the message we really have to send. I was just personally at the VA today for my annual checkup, and you walk around there, as much as everybody's got their head up and they're smiling, there's a lot of missing limbs and stuff like that out there. So just walking around the hospital today, it's something that we have to keep in mind all the time. So I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for pulling this out. This is very important for the city and for the people that live here.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, what we have now, we have a motion on the floor. It was properly seconded for second reading for our next council meeting. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Bergia,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Okay, Resolution 29, 2017 will be on the next council. Second reading. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we're going to go to our third. Okay. A resolution honoring astronaut and Senator John Glenn and declare an emergency. It was brought forth by Councilman Troyer, Council President Astorino, brought before Council 11/21/17. What we have is again, Senator John Glenn, everybody knows who he is, what and what he did. A distinguished fighter pilot in both World War II and the Korean War, with 6 distinguished flying crosses and 18 clusters in the Air Medal. And John Glenn was the first American to orbit the Earth when he piloted Friendship 7 and the Globe 3 times in 1962. I'm going to open this up. Council, go ahead. Councilman Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is also a resolution that we had some discussion on, and I had brought to council the idea of putting together a pathway through one of our parks and honoring people such as the great John Glenn. And I just don't think a resolution that would to pass that, just to read it, to give it to no one, there's not going to be anybody here to get it. It just doesn't do enough. And I would like to leave this in committee until we have an opportunity to finish the discussion and to bring it to fruition, the walkway, and to make John Glenn our first presentation in that walkway. I would like to have some dialogue with the mayor on it. We haven't had a chance to talk about it, but I have discussed it with several members of council, and it seems like everyone's as excited about it. It's not going to cost a lot of money, but it certainly is going to send a nice message and give us a nice opportunity to honor other people along the way, but John Glenn would certainly be a perfect fit for the first one. So unless anyone else has anything to say, I'd like to make a motion to put this back in committee until such time that we can get the brick walkway prepared and exactly how it's going to be presented and where it's going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Salvatore. Mayor?
Councils, you know, the NASA facility, which was one of the first in the United States, is named after Senator Glenn. He was a big proponent for us for many years of this community, and I think we should honor him.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Mr. Salvatore. I think he's not only an American hero, he's from Ohio also, and I thought that walkway or any other idea like that would be really something that would be kind of set us apart as really honoring people who are really heroes. And I think I'd like to see that happen, so I'm in favor of that. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Poindexter, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. You know, I'm under the impression that we can support this resolution and then in the future add them to the walk. You know, I don't see why you only have to honor them once. I mean, we can honor them twice. I think this resolution is fine, and I think it can come out of committee and we can pass it.
Okay, thank you. Me on that, I think, I kind of like what Councilman Salvatore had said, that, you know, we could have a walkway. And maybe as time goes by for future people on council, honor other dignitaries, people who've done outstanding feats, as Senator Glenn has done. People who've done historic things from the state of Ohio. Councilman Salvatore says, you know, we could probably maybe do it not so expensive. I hope so. I think it should be lights out. I think it should be a heck of a project, a heck of a walkway, something, again, that Brook Park could be known for. So that's how I feel on this. And Council President Vecchio.
You know, what I would like to see in defense of Councilman Salvatore's proposal, which I agree with wholeheartedly, but I would like to see some layout, maybe, you know, some start of a design, and maybe some cost evaluations. Let's get the ball rolling on this. Let's set a time frame on this.
Well, I think that's what he was saying when he said he would talk to the administration, the mayor, and they'd get it going. We'd bring it back out and go from there, because I agree with you too. You know, kind of get it going. Let's not hold it. And, you know, a year from now we're talking, hey, you know, what are you guys doing on that? Absolutely. So, Councilman Orcutt, you want to go on this?
I just wanted to say that basically what was just said by you, Mr. Chairman, about let's just get moving on this, and I think that was said already. I think we can get this wrapped up, and something we can do, probably get the construction, actually, if we can get some prices together, it'd be nice if we could have this done and built by this summer. Quite frankly, I don't see why we can't get this going. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I also agree with Councilman Salvador.
Councilman Stem, go right ahead.
I also agree with Councilman Salvador and Orcutt. You know, get this completed, get it rolling, and we could have a formal ceremony. You know, possibly invite family and friends of the Glenn family.
That'd be nice. Yeah. I believe that in the beginning, when Councilman Schreier brought this out, that was one of the things I had suggested. I know he had some good intentions with it. It was very good to bring this forward, but I had said that too. Boy, it'd be nice to get someone from the family, somebody heavy from NASA here, and hopefully when we do this, we could have some pretty good dignitaries. Council President Vecchio.
Well, as was stated, obviously, John Glenn is an Ohio native, and I don't know if everybody's really familiar with the fact that down around the Muskingum watershed area, down by Muskingum University, is where he's from. And, you know, so they have the John and Annie Glenn house down there. It's a tourist site, but obviously having NASA as the namesake, we can really set a footprint here, I think. You know, and some thought and some collaboration with the city and maybe investors or whatever it may be is the route we should take. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you. Councilman Poindexter, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm all for that, doing that. I just don't see how this resolution would stop us from doing that. That's all I got.
No, thank you. Okay, we have a motion to put back in committee. I'll take that was from Councilman Salvatore. So we have a second, supported by Councilman Scott. Clerk, could you call the roll on that, please? Place back in committee.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Perigio,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
No.
Okay. Resolution number 30, 2017, honoring astronaut Senator John Glenn and declaring emergency has been placed back in committee. Okay. We're going to move on to number 4. An ordinance 10069, 2017, amending certified sections of Chapter 153 of the Brook Park Codified Ordinance entitled Employees General and declaring emergency, introduced by Mayor Coyne. I'm going to go to the mayor or the law director on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You.
I'm assuming that this has been around for so long, and it's been so long really since we've talked about it.
It has, it was brought
That
12/20/16.
Right, the highlights of what the changes would be here have sort of dimmed in our memory. In looking at it, I'm assuming the first part, giving the full-time employees with more than 20 years up to 30 days of vacation, I assume that this would equalize the union employees with the administrative employees. So the administrative employees would be equal to what may be in some collective bargaining agreements. As I look on to page 2, the major difference I see with regard to the amendment of 153.021 is we're changing the fraction. We're not changing the decimal, though.
Okay.
So we're going from 4/8 to 1/2. Your decimal is still 0.5. So to me, that seems as though that is the major change. With regard to the following section that would be amended, 153.12, the holidays section, looks like we eliminated the employee's birthday and then added 16 personal hours in place of employee's birthday and 8 personal hours. So I think it's roughly equal, it's just that we're changing the day. And then as you get into the overtime provisions, the original overtime provisions, I see there are 29 different positions that are mentioned, that are covered in the original legislation. Then when I count up the amendment, it looks like there's only 24 positions that are covered with the amendment. So I think what happened or the intent was the Deputy Assistant Service Director, Deputy Directors of Recreation, the Superintendent of Parks and Playgrounds, the Supervisor of Public Properties, and the Assistant Deputy Finance Director are gone. I'm not sure that we have anyone in those positions, and later when I get to the end, unless there's some questions, I probably defer to Mr. Single. Those are union now? Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Madam Law Director, thank you. I'm sure we'll get back. Councilman Salvatore, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, after reading this legislation, I think it pretty much speaks for itself. It's pretty self-explanatory. I think your explanation was excellent, right on the money. I think it's been laying around since 2016, the latter part of 2016. So I guess really the only question, if there is any, that bothered me on this, and I don't know if, Mr. Single, if you had a chance to analyze the impact financially on the passage of this, or just having this thing read in committee to remain the same, or the passages of it, what economic impact would it have on our budget?
Through the chair to Councilman Salvatore. As the law director stated, the only significant change is adding an additional week of vacation on page 1. So anybody that has more than 20 years of service, it's in a non-union position. For example, the police chief, the police captain, the fire chief, and the assistant fire chief. Those employees would be, part of this. So we'll just be giving them an extra week's vacation. They would, they're salary employees. So from a monetary perspective, they're still going to earn their salary. They would just have an extra week off of vacation. And as the law director states, it mirrors the maximum amount of vacation that's provided in the union contracts.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
there may only be one or two people are affected as of now, but if these other positions were filled, it would definitely have a much larger impact. We're talking about what exists today. But if you read it, all these different positions, and if they were filled, it would have an impact on it. A lot more than just 1 week for one person.
Through the chair to Councilman Salvatore, they're all salaried employees. So they earn their salary, they'll just have an extra week vacation, and it will mirror the maximum amount that has been provided in the union contracts, but that's been collectively bargained.
Okay, and if I may continue, Mr. Chairman, through the chair to the mayor.
Go ahead.
Mayor, I don't know if you have had a chance to read this through, but is this something that you would embrace?
Rick, I would like time to read it a little more thoroughly. I have read it. I would just like to sit down with the finance director and figure out what the economic impact of it would be.
Okay, so then if you're going to, if there are no other questions, I make a motion that we read it in committee and we start over.
All right, I'll take that motion, but we'll keep
Wait a
it.
minute, hold on one second. This has been on a council meeting?
Yes.
It has.
Okay, then the motion would be to place back in committee then until we can get some more answers.
All right, I'll take that, but I'm still going to keep it under discussion. Council President Vecchio, go ahead.
So, just for clarification, and this will go to Mr. Single, because these are salaried positions, the economic impact to the city is zero on the surface. What does it do with retirement benefits or anything like that, Mr. Single?
Mr. Chairman, it would have no impact on the retirement benefits. The sick time payout is 4/8. This has changed to 1/2, so that's the same as the law director stated. It's still 0.5. Other than that, there aren't any other economic impacts on retirement or really financially to the city is what's currently being followed. Just again, these individuals would get an extra week vacation. Anybody that had 20 or more years of vacation or years of service would get an extra week of vacation. And then on the days off, we get to that section, they would get, it looks like they would get an extra, instead of their birthday, they would get a personal day. And so there's 16 personal hours would be amended to. They get 8 in lieu of it, so there's no impact there either. So I don't see any economic impact at all passing these changes.
Thank you, and weigh in a little bit further. So in recap, what I've just heard is there is zero economic impact to the city because these are salaried positions, neither upon retirement or during. So what we're looking to do is match our salaried employees with our bargaining unit employees with vacation and personal time.
It's good the way it looks.
I would agree.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Councilman Poindexter.
Thank you. Real quick, through the chair to finance director. When they're away on this extra time off, I guess depending on the position, would somebody have to then step up and fill the position? And is there any additional salary or anything like that that would be entitled to that person who steps up into that position?
Through the chair to Councilman Poindexter. No, there's no additional compensation. Like give my department, for example, the assistant finance director, if that individual received an extra week's vacation, they're not in the office, I would pick up that work. Same, I'm sure, with the building commissioner, somebody in the department, if need be, would pick up, that work for the additional week off. Whatever is created.
Okay, I'll go on it. And Greg, wouldn't that be, that most of that salary anyway, right? I mean, you had stated before you kept saying salary, so there's really not a big step up. I mean, coming from the service garage, if the service director isn't there, generally some of the whatever general foreman fill in type of say, and the rec director isn't there, or the supervisors over there fill in. I don't know how big of a matter of overtime that really is. Do I stand corrected on that?
Well, again, unless there's an emergency, I don't believe that the additional week vacation would create any additional overtime.
Okay, thank you. And one thing I'll say for, in the past and in the not too distant future, a lot of our directors are pretty good when we do have an emergency of coming in, so I don't know how much of a problem that could be. On this, we do have a motion. Is there anybody else who'd like to talk on this? Madam Law Director, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out in section 10, that's eliminating the Wage, Salary, Benefit, and Contract Review Committee. So that would repeal the current section 153.1A. And other than that, I wouldn't have any further comment.
Okay. We do have a motion to put back. I do agree with that for the finance director and the mayor to discuss this and, come back at us. I believe the administration should have much of a little bit of an imprint on this, so, okay. So we have a motion to put back in committee. I got a second, I'll second it,
Second, support.
okay. Clerk, could you please call the roll, please?
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance amending section 153.03 of the Brook Park Codified Ordinance entitled Leave Absent, I'm sorry. Number 4, ordinance number 169, 2017, amending certain sections of chapter 153 of the Brook Park Codified Ordinance entitled Employees Generally, and declaring an emergency has been placed back in committee. Okay. The next one, number 5. Okay, an ordinance amending section 153.03 of the Brook Park Codified Ordinance entitled Leave of Absent, Temporary Military Training, and Declare an Emergency. That was introduced by Mayor Coyne. Okay. That first came out back in 12/20/2016. Said first, second, third reading. What it is leave of absence for temporary military training. All full-time city employees who are members of the Ohio National Guard, the Ohio State Guard, and the Ohio Naval Militia, or other reserve components of the Armed Forces of the United States should be entitled to a leave of absence without loss of pay from their respective duties pursuant to section 5923.05 of the Brook Park, Ohio Revised Code. Such leave of absence shall not affect a person's rights to vacation leave, sick leave, bonus, or other normal benefits of his employment. I will go to Council Bergio on this. Councilman Bergio, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Chair to our Finance Director, I think the only change here is 480 hours maximum, which I believe is 2 months. Have we had any history on that? Have personnel have taken more than 2 months, and has that been a problem?
Through the chair to Councilman Bergio, I don't recall anybody. I can only remember, I think, one person that was on active duty that this affected. and he no longer is an employee of the city. So
This
this would be
department?
12, this would be for 12 weeks maximum. I don't recall how long that gentleman was out, but I only remember one time where somebody was out for a prolonged period of time due to being called to active duty.
So right now, it's basically, there's no maximum then. So a person could be gone for a year or so, as it stands right now. But that has not been the case, to your knowledge. It's happened.
Through the chair of Councilman Berger, I don't recall, no. I just remember one individual years ago that was on active duty. I don't recall how long he was gone. My recollection was he was gone for significantly a long period of time, but I can't remember if it was greater than 3 months.
It was.
It was? Okay, thank you. I was thinking it was, but I didn't want to answer
Okay,
incorrectly.
for right now, that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, thank you, Councilman Bergio. Councilman Salvatore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do believe the way it's written right now, that anyone will be protected under Section 5923.05 of the Ohio Revised Code. And this is another piece of legislation that's been hanging around since 2016. And I think you're right, Councilman Mancini. I think it was designed for one specific person. And I think the finance director clarified that person doesn't even work here anymore. So I really don't see any reason to make any changes because it's pretty much controlled and monitored through the Ohio Revised Code. So having said all that, I think we should just have this read in committee as well.
Okay, anybody else? Councilman Orcutt?
I believe that, I did a little research on this, that they already get, any employee of the city, I believe, Mr. Chairman, already does get 4 weeks, 1 month on this. And if there is a presidential recall and they're called to active duty, they're getting their full pay as well, too. Just want everybody to understand that, so it's not like they're losing a lot, and from 4 weeks to 12 was quite a bit, too. Just wanted to point that out to everybody.
Thank you. Anybody else? Council, what's your pleasure?
I believe Mr. Salvatore made a motion.
Was that informal? It wasn't informal?
Support.
Okay. Be read in committee, Councilman Salvatore, seconded by Council Scott. Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Salvatore,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergia,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter.
Yes.
Thank you. An ordinance amending 153.03 of the Brook Park Codified Ordinances entitled Leave of Absence for Temporary Military Training and declaring an emergency. Will be read in committee. On we go. Thank you. Number 6. Okay. A resolution declaring November as National Diabetes Awareness Month in the city of Brook Park and declaring emergency. Introduced by Councilman Salvatore. It was 11/14/17. Councilman Salvatore, I'm sure you want to speak on this.
Thanks again, Mr. Chairman. I think we did talk about this during the introduction. It didn't make passage prior to the having the impact on the month of November. So I'd asked the chairman at the time to just put it back in committee. We'll bring it out next year after Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Then we will address the National Diabetes Awareness Month. And I would like all members of council to co-sponsor it if they like, but I really don't want to bring this back out now until the proper time, which would be prior to November of this year. And then obviously, I think that we need we have a couple of misspellings there, one in the title, but we got 9 months to fix that, so
Do you aware of
we're
this?
not too worried about that.
Well, on this,
Well, we'll have to change the date when the time comes
change
too,
it,
but
okay. On this, Councilman Salvatore beat me to the punch. I had a resident pushing me for this, and she has diabetes. And I told her Councilman Salvatore already beat me. He usually does on some of these things, but it was another one, a great one to beat me on. And I think we're both thinking in the right direction. As you know, every day, at least 4,000 people are diagnosed with diabetes. It affects the lives of 30 million children and adults in this country, and another 86 million with prediabetes. So pretty big disease, you know, again, so.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go
if I
ahead,
may,
Councilman Salvatore.
I'd like to get some of the preliminary out of the way and invite all members of the council and the mayor to, if they'd like to co-sponsor it, we can get that out of the way now, and then any changes that we have to make as far as spelling goes and changing of the dates in section 1, we could do that later on in the month of November or October, but I'd like to have everybody's name on this now as it goes back into committee. Anybody who would like to sponsor.
Sponsors, everybody wants to be a co-sponsor, everybody, council as a whole, mayor also.
So when it comes out, it'll come out as a council of the whole with the mayor on there.
Okay.
That's good, thank you.
No, thank you.
Motion to place back in committee?
There's a motion, I believe, I'm gonna go into discussion, I'm gonna let Mr. Councilman Poindexter go. Go ahead, Councilman Poindexter, you got the floor now.
Thank you, Chairman. Like I said, under the breast cancer awareness resolution, I'd just like to bring this out in a timely fashion so we can get the most discussion possible out on the floor about it. You know, let's bring it out. Let's take it to first reading, second reading, third reading. That way we get the most awareness we can get out of our legislation out of it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else like to speak on this? Okay, there's a motion on the floor, put back in committee. I will second that.
It's already seconded.
Already seconded, somebody beat me to the punch again. Clerk, call the roll.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Persia?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Stem?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Poindexter?
Yes.
Okay. The resolution declaring November as National Diabetes Awareness Month in the city of Brook Park and declaring emergency has been put back in committee. Again, thank everybody. Okay, seventh and final one.
Mr. Mancini, I'm just wondering.
So
with all the
President
reading, you're
Vecchio,
actually getting tired.
let me call on you. I'm calling on you. You got the floor. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering with all the reading you've done and all the talking, if you've gotten tired today.
No, I haven't got tired. I'd like to go to the mic and talk a little bit, give a little speech, and see Brandy over there smiling. We got a lot of time here. It's a little past 8:30. So we head to number 7. An ordinance placing a memorandum on operation of any short-term residential real estate rentals in the city of Brook Park and declaring an emergency. It's introduced by Mayor Gamella, and I'm gonna let him go. I'm gonna go first on this. I actually brought this back near the end of last year. The mayor brought it forward. We were both going right down the same street with this, and I believe we're gonna hit the Y and be spot on this. So I'm gonna let the mayor go on this one. Mayor Gamella.
And Jim, you did offer to be a co-sponsor on it. I appreciate it because this is
Absolutely.
what you wanted to do as well. What this basically does, council, short-term rentals, if you're gonna rent your house for a week, and a lot of times what happens is we're finding, I learned at the mayors and managers meeting, people leasing their house out for a week, it's not for the best of purposes, so I'll just leave it there. So we're just trying to protect the city.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Council President Vecchio.
So to fully understand this, this is something to do with like the Airbnbs, the bed and breakfasts that have been going around for a while.
Well, yeah, a little of all of it.
A little bit of-
Absolutely. I think what we're gonna do here, I'll refer to the law director, but I've had this for a little bit. My situation was like a day-to-day one. And we don't wanna, with the whole, gotta watch, we don't inflict on the hotels also. But yes, you know, bed and breakfasts, things of that sort, leasing it for a day, and next you know, you got a full-blown party over there, things of that sort. So Councilman Salvatore, go ahead. I know you wanted to comment on this also.
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I like to look at everything with an open mind, so I'd like to know the adverse effect of passing this or the positive effect and the reasons why we need it. I know there's some issues that pertain to the world of real estate, and if we forbid the rental of a 30-day rental or a 40-day rental or a 20-day rental, how is that going to be enforced, especially in the real estate transaction? If someone sells their house and they want to, let's say they sell their house in April, but they want to stay till June because their children are still in school, so they enter into a rental agreement that could last 40 days. for 38 days or 29 days. All those things would be affected by this ordinance. And how would you even know that someone's doing that? They're actually breaking the law, but it's also part of the real estate world. It's part of the industry.
Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you. Rick, if it's a legitimate contract, say if I want to move out and I want to stay another 2 months before I go, and the people I'm buying the house or buying my house will lease it back to me, that's fine. That's part of a legitimate real estate transaction. What we're trying to stop here are problems we may have in the future that other cities have have faced is smoke houses, people leasing their house out for a week for activities, again, I don't think you'd be happy with, and I don't think the residents would be. So it gives our police force the protection to go in there and do something about it. Any legitimate contract wouldn't be a problem at all.
The other issue that this ordinance could interfere, maybe not, but the greater Cleveland area is becoming a very popular domain for the production of movies. And a lot of times when these movie companies come into town, they rent homes for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and they're paying $3,000-4,000 a month for a home that may only bring $1,500 in the open market. So it gives people an opportunity in our city to make a pretty sizable profit. And as noted recently in the RNC, there's people coming into the greater Cleveland area renting houses for $10,000, $8,000, $6,000. They were paying by the week, by the month. It was a tremendous opportunity for a lot of people. Moved out of their house and rented them so they could make some money to help send their kids to college or whatever other bill they may have had. So I just don't want us to create a law that stops or interferes with some of the positive things that happens in some of those things. But I do understand, Mayor and Mr. Chairman, that if there is a problem, then we need to address it. But I don't want to hurt people because we're trying to stop 1 or 2 people from doing things that aren't good. And that's all. I just want to make sure that this is in a form that protects everybody in the right fashion.
Councilman, I'm glad you brought that up, because I thought, and I'm going to let the law director go, and I'm going to let my other colleagues go, but you brought up a good point. But I think the mayor brought up a good point. We're not trying to stop legitimate real estate transactions. We don't want to stop somebody who's doing something on the right path. What we want to do is, my residents found out one day, somebody moved in, next you know they got different cars every day, and somehow they went on some website and they found out the guy was doing a bed and breakfast. Well, theoretically, you'd even do the rental registry, which I'm glad we caught. And I don't even know really if he filed for a business with the city too. I know he has taxes to pay. But them are the things we want to stop, because, you know, you start renting it out by the day, you know, 2 months, 4 months to a movie studio, you know, I get it. But my thing is, you know, when there's different people coming every day, I think you may be opening up a can of worms. Maybe we don't want to go down that road. And, you know, we do have a share of rentals in Brook Park. We did a great job as a council 4 years ago doing a rental registry, and it stuck. And a lot of people got to do it. I'm going to come back to you. And I think it's very important that we somehow, and again, I guess maybe my suggestion, I'm going to listen to the law director, put this back in committee, let the administration work with the law director, bring this back out, and we could put some of these parameters in place. Because I just think it's a road we got to be really careful going down. Are we going to allow this? We already had the party issue, as everybody remembers, well over a year and a half ago. Again, do we want to go down? Do we want to put our residents going down that road? It's a Saturday night and they're looking in cars left and right, pulling up down their street, parking, 40 kids
Councilman,
jumping out of the car.
I don't think that's keeping us on point and on task of what this portion is. I mean, that's a whole nother subject. Let's try to keep where we're at here.
No, theoretically, it's not. I mean, theoretically, if you rent out for a night, if your neighbor's renting their house out for a day and a bunch of cars pull up, you know, I mean, that's where I'm at.
Right, but I would say let's just call that nuisance and move forward with that.
Well,
Keep it where it's at.
nuisance, whatever you have it, but it's still, you're still renting. You're renting for that time, and you're renting for whatever for that day. Once somebody's in there, they're in there to do what they choose for that day. So I think we have to be very careful going down that road. But Councilman Salvatore, I know you want to go. I let you go, but I'm looking over at Councilman Scott, so I'm going to let him go real quick. I'll come back to you. Okay, thank you,
Thank you,
Councilman
Chair.
Scott.
Real quick, not be a devil advocate, how would we police this? how would we know who our temporary rentals are, or, you know, how would we be able to police that?
Well, I got a little something today. I'm going to let the law director go on that. Madam Law Director, if you could, please. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. On the surface, this would seem to be a fairly simple issue, but as you dig in, it gets more and more complicated, as Mr. Salvatore had indicated, and different cities, depending on their needs, approach things differently. Some cities look at it from a zoning standpoint. Other cities have basically said, well, maybe we should have rules for short-term rentals, and they regulate that. There's a short-term rental certificate that has to be obtained. I've seen some legislation that's been proposed that limit people to the number of times they're doing the short-term rentals with a specific piece of property. Maybe they'll limit that to 3 or 4 times a year and have some way of enforcing it. And lastly, there are some cities who have enough activity that they're interested in taxing it. So, you know, they're interested in having Airbnb collect some sort of percentage of tax on their behalf and then remit it to the city. So, obviously, we're not a resort community. Our major attractions probably are what's going on in the city of Cleveland, and I know a lot of people like to come when the Cavaliers are winning or the Indians are winning. We will not mention the Browns, but there's a lot of factors to be looked at this, and I think there should be a discussion by council as to what would be best for our city. And certainly there would have to be some exemptions too. I mean, if I need to keep my child in school and I've negotiated after selling my house, maybe a 20-day extension of time where I'm going to be there, we certainly don't want that to be affected by what we do. It's probably unlikely that we're going to get a whole lot of tax for rentals here in the city, but we probably need to look at some sort of perhaps zoning and regulatory option too. And part of what needs to be looked at is currently how many of these particular houses are being rented short-term. To the best that the law department could determine, I think we have probably 3 in the city now. So I would be much more concerned if we had 50 rather than the 3. I think the fact that we have 3 can give council enough time to, have a full discussion and decide what should be the best way to approach this. And I certainly will continue to look into this and report back.
Thank you, Madam Law Director. And I will say this, if you feel this might not be a problem, deal with what I've dealt with when the calls came on this, that when this all happened, the calls came, okay? So it's all different than when it's affecting you, your ward, your street, and the calls start coming. It's a whole different new ballgame. I will go to Councilman Poindexter real quick, Councilman Salvatore. I'm coming to you. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. It seems to me that the only issue with these short-term rentals is when there's an issue like, loud party or illegal activity or things of that nature. I would assume that most neighbors wouldn't care one way or the other if there was, decent people staying in the houses and just, staying there the short time that they rented the house. I wouldn't mind if, living next door to somebody as long as they, minded their business and stuff. So I don't know if I would really support a moratorium because of some of the issues that Councilman Salvatore brought up, and and the fact that it's only when there's an issue. I would however support something like if holding the homeowner liable if something like that were to happen. I think that in itself might solve the problem. I would really hate to limit people's opportunity to use their house however they wanted to use it.
So you're saying wait till something happens to make your move?
Yeah. Basically, maybe we need to consider legislation, put legislation in place that would give you know, make the homeowner liable if something were, you know, something like that were to take place. You know, I don't. Hello?
The mic.
Yeah, I don't think, you know, I don't think, you know, brushing the whole scenario with a broad stroke.
Well, I don't think we're brushing it in a broad stroke. Again, I'd like to see what the administration, what the law department's gonna kind of bring forward on this. I've dealt with it, and if I'm not mistaken, you kind of dealt with it in your neighborhood. I just want to be a little pre-active instead of post-active a little bit on it. I know it's touchy, I know it's hard, but again, I had to deal with it. I'm not gonna name the street, but I'm sure if them residents are listening right now, they're probably like, yeah, well, what didn't affect you, it was on your street. You had it happen on your street.
And that's what I'm saying, like, when, you know, when there are incidences like that, you know, we should have, you know, some way to combat that without shutting the whole process down.
We're not trying to shut the whole process down, I don't believe, but Councilman Salvatore, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In response to this ordinance being able to control parties, we already have an ordinance on the books that deals with parties. We went through that last year, so we already have that in place. As far as the bed and breakfast goes, that's a zoning issue, and I don't believe that anybody in a residential area can operate a bed and breakfast in our local neighborhoods. And I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure our zoning provides for that not to be allowed. And if it does allow it, then we need to address that in our zoning ordinance, as the law director indicated. I'm glad she brought that up, because that's the point I was going to make. We should be looking at some of our zoning ordinances. If someone can operate a bed and breakfast with our existing ordinance, I would be shocked that we haven't already addressed that, because I do remember over, maybe it was 10 or 15 years ago, someone tried to put up a bed and breakfast back on the West End, and they couldn't, because the zoning wouldn't provide for it, so they needed to have council's blessing and the mayor's blessing, and they couldn't get it. So we didn't allow it. So I don't believe that the bed and breakfast operating in our town could not be shut down by our building department if in the event someone knows that that's going on. That should be able to be, we should be able to shut that down immediately. But I do understand why the mayor and Councilman Mancini brought this forward. Residents have a concern, and I think we should continue to have some dialogue on it. But I don't really think that we're ready for it yet. I think there's some more research that's necessary. Thank you.
I'm gonna I'll let Council President Vecchio go.
In listening to the discussion across all facets, I happen to agree with Councilman Salvatore and with Councilman Poindexter. Councilman Poindexter brings up a great point in the fact that the homeowner is ultimately responsible for what takes place on their property and what happens with their property. To try to control a quote-unquote short-term rental, we all know that, you know, there's life's full of scrupulous people, and there's ways around everything. So how we're going to control that is the issue. The better way to control it is by taking it to the homeowner. And so I think that the thought process needs to go to how do we control it, or how do we penalize the homeowner for that action, for allowing that action. That's my opinion on that.
Thank you. Mayor, go ahead.
Well, again, I just want to state, this is to protect homeowners, to protect residents. There are issues out there with short-term rentals, less than 30 days, and I want to address this issue in the city of Brook Park before it becomes a problem, and that's why I brought it forward.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Burgio, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mayor, I know you have the good intentions and the intentions of the city on this. And I know our law director has already looked into this, but I would like to give her as much time as she needs to really thoroughly look at this, because when it comes to real estate, you have to be really careful about some of the laws that you make and that type of thing. So I'd be more comfortable hearing more input from her, and then we can kind of look, and maybe we have some laws that will protect people from these kind of things already. So I just think we need some time to really be careful and look at this, take a little more time with that. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Burgio. And I believe that's what we've been doing, and I believe that's what we've already discussed that we are going to do. I believe Akron, the city of Akron already has something, a little bit of this in place, because a little bit of was a problem there. City of Akron, do I stand corrected?
Through the chair to, Chairman.
Floor.
They kind of got stuck in mid-process. From what I understand, they were looking at legislation, but they did not pass it or have not processed it yet. What they did with the situation they had was they enforced it through their zoning code. And I think that the complaints of neighbors were more akin to the idea that there was a lot of noise and partying and so forth. So the way that they chose to do it was to issue a citation, and I believe the homeowner who was doing the short-term rental went to court and, paid a $100 fine or something, which seems somewhat minimal, but was something that still probably he found to be upsetting, because he felt that he had the right to do what he wished with his property. So in fact, they're still looking at it. I would imagine they probably address it within a zoning format, because that's how they stopped the issue with that one particular piece of property. But it can be complicated, and I think all of council knows our community and how our residents think and what our community wants, and you need to be presented with some choices of different ways to approach it, so you'll have an opportunity to tailor it to what you think fits our residents the best.
Thank you, Madam Law Director. Where I do concur with my colleague, Councilman Poindexter, is there's never really a problem till it starts affecting the neighbors. And then it becomes a problem. Not only for the neighbors, it becomes a city problem. And again, I think we're just being a little bit pre-cautious instead of post-cautious. And I don't think we're trying to lay down the law. I thought, again, I'll repeat myself, we had a lot of rentals coming in when I walked in 213. There was a lot. It was one of the first things I heard when I got out in 213. See that house over there? There's 100 people living on. See that house over there? They haven't cut the grass since Noah's Ark was out. So we had the rental registry, and we were allowed to do it, and it's worked. So they're held a little liable. Now, it's just that they can't collect the monthly rent and live in Connecticut and say, geez, how's it going? Now they know we have the right once a year for internal, exterior inspection, that there's a little bit of a cost, that there is, we have some rules. We do want to do that. And again, I'm willing to give that good time in and make sure this gets done and gets done right, and I'm sure the mayor does also. So, what do we got on this, council? What do you want to do? There's been a motion to place back in committee. Councilman Scott supported it. Motion made by Councilman Salvatore. Clerk, can we have the roll call, please?
Salvatore?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Burgio?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Stem?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Poindexter?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna place, the ordinance placing a moratorium on the operation of any short-term residential real estate rental in the Brook Park and declare an emergency. Back in committee. Council President, guess what? I'm all done. That's all we have here in the legislative committee. We're done here, and your meeting. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. Good job. Moving on to item 6, Safety Committee, Chairman Stem.
Thank you, Council President. We have a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter an all-hazard mitigation plan with Cuyahoga County and declaring an emergency, placed in committee on December 19th, 2017. I'd like to open it for discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, Councilman Salvador.
Thank you. Can anyone, this is basically one that I have a piece of legislation here that was passed back in '07, introduced by Mayor Elliott. Is this just a house cleaning issue, or is there anybody can explain the changes between that and the new one? Is anyone available that Mayor could, Mayor, are you familiar with this? Or Madam Law Director, are you familiar with it?
Councilman Salvatore, I think you are essentially correct that it is to a large extent a housekeeping issue. I have not had an opportunity to look at the entire mitigation plan, but I would imagine that after a period of time, things need to be updated, things change. I could certainly check and see what might be the major differences between the old plan and the new plan, but my understanding is that this would be in the nature of a housekeeping issue.
Mr. Chairman, if no one has any questions on it, I'd like to make a motion that we place this on the next caucus prior to the next council with the ability to move it to the council after the research by the law director in case we need to get this passed.
I'll support that. That's an 07, that's an 01. Right? I'll support that.
Okay, so we have a motion to place on the next council meeting with the support, or the discussion with the law director, supported by Mancini. Is that correct? Okay.
But what I wanted to do is put it at the next caucus prior to the council so that we would have time to discuss it, have the information from the law director, and at that point, we'd have the ability to move it to the council meeting that night.
Mr. Stem, that would be August 20th.
February.
Or, I'm sorry, February 20th, not August. I've got
See,
August.
I started
Our
that with
last
the 20
conversation.
thing before.
So the motion is,
August on the brain.
motion from Councilman Salvador to be placed on the caucus February 20th, 2018. After the law director had her chance to look through the resolution, supported by Councilman Mancini. Any further discussion? Michelle, can we call the roll?
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Giorgio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Carried.
All right. That concludes all of the items there before our executive session, but Mayor Gamel has asked if he could speak on something prior to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council, initially, I was going to have a discussion with the contractor about the recreation center agreement on the 20th. That presentation looks like it'll be fairly lengthy, so I'd like to move that to the 27th, the caucus, so they have more time. So I just want to bring that up. It'll be on the 27th, a presentation about what's going on over at the recreation center. And finally, I know you gentlemen don't need to be reminded, but tomorrow's Valentine's Day. So, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Hence the reason for my color tonight.
Thanks for the heads up.
There is one other item, and I'm sure that people have seen this out on social media here lately. There's a little bit of a bathroom discrepancy issue inside of our schools, and anybody that's interested in it, before we conclude where we're at, just so everybody's aware, Thursday night, the City of Berea's Planning Commission will be holding their meeting and going over these plans and some approvals if anybody's interested. And that will be taking place at St. Paul Evangelical Lutheran Church, in case anybody's looking to see more about that. And then with nothing else, I will take a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of personnel matters.
Motion so made.
Support?
Motion by Councilman Mancini, supported by Councilman Scott. Properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Mancini,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Giorgio,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Salvatore.
Yes.
All right, motion approved.